So in the last lesson, we looked at our struct and how to encode a struct in JSON. So one thing we did notice is that the keys, they were exactly like what we have specified in our struct. So you'll notice that the keys were all capital letters. So capital I for ID, capital Z for created at, and capital V for version. Okay, so it turns out that there are some instances where, let's say for example, you don't want your keys to have capital letters. You want them to have small letters. Okay, so even though we must specify them with capital letters for them to be exportable, we don't want the user to actually see the capital letters. So in this lesson, we want to fix that, and we want to fix that using so-called struct tags. Okay, so all I'm going to do is to basically tell Go how the key should be formatted. Okay, and so to do that, we're going to use the backtick operation character followed by the keyword JSON followed by a colon, and then you simply provide what the key should look like. So in my case, we want ID to be the key. So we don't want a capital ID, we want small letters. And we do the same for each of the fields. Okay, so let me just copy and paste. So for created at, let's just use created underscore at. Okay, that's what we want. For name, we want name. For level, we want level. For contact, we would prefer to have small c for contact. Okay. For phone, we want small letters. Email, of course, we want email. I think you get the idea by now. Okay. Address. Notice for words that have multiple words, like created at, I use an underscore to separate the words. Mode, and of course version. Okay, so these are struct tags. Okay, all right, so let's start up our server and let's see what is the result. Okay, so I started my server, and so let's check schools 5. Okay, so notice that my keys are now the way I specified them using the struct tags. Okay, so by using the struct tags, we have more flexibility. Now, what happens if, let's say, for example, I don't want the user to see created at, or I don't want the user to see any of the fields, any of the keys that don't have a value? We can do that. Okay, so let's go back here and let me stop my server. And so I'm going to add another parameter. So whenever we don't want Go to display as a particular key value pair, then all we need to do is to use a dash. Okay, so for example, let's say I decide to do this, and I'll just put a dash. Okay, so what that will tell Go is that created at should not be displayed to the client. So let's save that and let's start our server again to show you what that looks like. Okay. So let's notice we have created alt here. Let's refresh. Okay, so created alt is no longer there. Now, what happens if, for example, we don't want the user or the client to see these keys that don't have a current value? We could also provide specifiers to Go to do that. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to tell Go, you know what, if there is no email provided, because sometimes there is no email, okay, don't show it. So I'm going to use the omit empty specifier, and that simply means if it's empty, don't show it. Likewise, a school might not have a website, and so I'm going to say omit empty. All right, I think these are the only two things that schools optionally have. All right, they'll have a name, they'll have a level, and so on. So let's say these are the only two things that are optional. Okay, so since we have not provided any of these things, right, so notice we have not provided an email and we have not provided a website. So let's just hide those two fields until there are values provided for them. All right, okay, so let's come back here, let's refresh. Okay, so notice now the email and the website fields are no longer there because currently they are empty. All right, so let's do one more thing. Let's open a new terminal and let's do a bit of curl to see how this looks like. Let's use 5 again. Okay, so it works. One thing, however, you'll notice that the JSON that is returned to us is not really visually appealing, so it's not easy to see what the response is. So what I want to do in the next lesson is to show you how we can actually format our response so that when we display it on the command line on the terminal, it sort of resembles what we would see with the browser. Okay, that's what we want to work on next. I'll see you in that lesson.